Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, May 19th, 2015, regular meeting of the Los Angeles Board of Police Commissioners. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Good morning. Let the record reflect Commissioner Soboroff, Madison, Figueroa Villa, and Saltzman are present, and we have a quorum. Number one on the agenda, commission comments.
Anyone?
I do have one.
Commissioner Saltzman?
Yes, thank you. The Long Beach Pride Parade happened Sunday, and the department had kindly offered to work with me to be there and participate. Unfortunately, I was ill and I couldn't participate, but I want to thank the department folks who were going to help out. And also note, because I spoke to them afterwards, that it was a good event. There were over 20 officers in uniform, obviously not all from the Los Angeles Police Department, Long Beach, and several other police departments, but a good turnout. And I view that as a positive step leading up to the Pride Parade and activities here in Los Angeles and West Hollywood. And to remind my colleagues and others that in the department that on June 2nd, the commission will be sponsoring a reception for all department employees, sworn and civilian, who would like to celebrate the LGBTQ community within the police department.
Good.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, we do have one comment card. We have Michael Locke.
Comments and statistics is here what I'm to talk about. Arrested after giving me the $215,000 about 30 times in the last 9 months. Is that retaliation? We asked everybody, is that retaliation? You would think that they would have more sense and more common sense after a lawsuit that you wouldn't retaliate. You wouldn't give a person 30 tickets. Those are the statistics when you're black. Those are the statistics for African Americans. 30 tickets after the $215,000. Ain't that a fucking shame? Wouldn't you reckon? Wouldn't you reckon? So if I was white, I probably wouldn't have none of those goddamn tickets. I'd probably be living in peace. But I'm not, so what's really fucking going on with LAPD? Bunch of fucking racists. I can say that. That's statistics. Statistically speaking, how many black people are out there? A fucking racist, Chief Black. Them rednecks running the city.
Thank you. Item number 2, report of the Chief of Police. Chief Beck.
Morning, Chief.
Good morning, Commissioners, and first, thank you for participating in the longevity pin ceremony today. I appreciate it. It was nice to have both the President and the Vice President there. This past week, I attended Police Memorial Week in Washington, D.C. It is the week when the officers who have sacrificed their lives in the line of duty are remembered for the previous year. It's a series of ceremonies that recognize the fallen officers, and the families come together at those ceremonies, and they too are recognized. We lost, as you're well aware, 3 officers in line of duty last year: Roberto Sanchez, Nicholas Lee, and Chris Cortillo. President of the United States was at the one of the ceremonies that I attended. He made some very heartfelt comments about the over 121 officers who were added to the memorial wall this year. But he highlighted 3. And one of the stories he told was the story of Roberto Sanchez, the Los Angeles police officer that was killed in the line of duty in Harbor Division this past year, murdered in the line of duty in Harbor Division. That case is still pending before the Superior Court. Significant accomplishment to have the President recognize somebody so personally and speak about the families and his widow Sonia, who was in attendance seated in the front row. Very moving ceremonies. We had a great attendance by members of the Los Angeles Police Department, and as is fitting for a year when we lost so much. So that was this past week. On to my discussion of crime statistics. As of the week ending 5/16, we are down just under 12% in homicides year to date. Violent crime in the other categories is up a little over 24%. Property crime is at 11% increase, and that gives us a total Part 1 crime increase of 13.5%, to contrast with the reduction in homicides. Total gang crime has been on the increase this year, 22.8% compared to last year. Significant increase in gang crime, which has in significant part helped to establish our increases in overall violent crime. Traffic collisions are up in the city, about 12%. We've had 17,754 traffic collisions so far this year, as compared to about 15,800 last year. We have a reduction in driving under the influence traffic accidents, a hit and run increase by 7.5%, a motor vehicle versus pedestrian decrease of 0.7%, and a bicycle involved traffic accident decrease of 8.5%. We have 9,867 sworn personnel on payroll, 2,714 civilian personnel, just over 400 reserve officers, 371 specialist volunteers, 61 chaplain counselors, and 6,093 cadets. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Chief.
We do have 3 public comment cards. We have Michael Locke, Prentice Jenkins, and Mr. Herman.
Again, I want to talk about retaliation. $215,000. Retaliation is a soul. When you have nothing but racist people running the city of Los Angeles, the statistic crimes are up. I'm one of the beneficiaries. I've been treated very wrong here. After receiving $215,000 from the city, you guys wrote me 30 tickets in 6 months. What's wrong with that picture? Is this racism or retaliation? If you guys want your money back, just say you want your money back. There's no need for me to be stopped 30 times in 6 months. 4215 tickets. I'm in trial now. And I'm a 9th Circuit winner in trial for the same thing. What's wrong with the city of LA? Why are they writing all these bogus tickets? Because Chief Charlie Beck is a racist.
Prentice Jenkins. Followed by Mr. Herman and a card for Adolf Hitler.
Morning, everyone. Got a show and tell here. Continuing to talk about the post-traumatic stress disorder in the police and fire department. Changes their personalities, and because it changes their personalities, they're cops stopping black men, grabbing their penises. Homosexual cops are stopping black men, grabbing their penises. And one right here. This is a video of a cop grabbing a black man's penis. See him holding his penis? He just held it. There it is. He just held his penis. Because that's why he stopped him. He stopped him. He said marijuana, but he never found marijuana. Now look at what he does to him. He believes that the young man knows what he is now. So now they got to rough him up. They hit him with the taser, tried to break his arms. This is what's happening in police departments all across this country. All across the country, homosexual cops are going after black men's penises because of the stereotype. Yeah, you know the homosexual cops. All you cops know who they are. I am absolutely not opposed. I'm a friend of homosexual cops who have the right to be employed in the police department. I'm not saying homosexual cops don't belong in the police department. I'm saying they do. I'm talking about the ones on the down low. I'm talking about the ones that like to do this, grab young black men's penises. This is just the first one. I got 2 of these where they're grabbing his penises. One says, "Oh, I'm sorry." What's that? He says, "That's my penis." Cop says, "Oh, I'm sorry." It's mostly white ones. I'm sure there are some black ones. This is not about race with me. This is across the board. Look what they're trying to do, break his arms, because they figure he knows what they are now. They're trying to break his arms now. He's in handcuffs, and they hit him with the taser in the neck. This is what's going on in the
Thank you. Next.
Thank you. Mr. Herman?
Is crime down today in Los Angeles? Is Chief Beck adequately providing us information regarding material based on homicide and crime in Los Angeles? Is he? Because, again, Mr. Beck, under the Library of Book of Rights for the Disability, in regards to a comment made by you that the Title III of the American Disability Act 1990, Public Law 101-336, prohibits discrimination, as we heard from the gentleman in the red, gorgeous cape, Mr. Michael Hunt, who has befriended us along with Mr. Salzberg, a.k.a. Hootie Hoo, Zuma Dog, in Dean Ferguson's federal ruling back in 2012. So who's the godfather of ADA? I think I found that out. It's Justin Dart Jr., a Democratic who spoke out in 1996. But again, when it comes to our entitlements, these entities are required to make reasonable modifications to avoid discrimination against people with disabilities and to remove barriers to access, the same as they hold us accountable, saying we're violating the law because there's a barrier at City Hall. Look, there's none here. Look, I could do all of this in the name of the First Amendment, freedom of expression. So in the news this morning, Mr. Beck, the incident involving the persons that ran into that tall building downtown right here and jumped off the building and hurt himself. Again, are we safe in Los Angeles? We're not. And you can shrug your shoulders at me, but I believe I am politically correct. And quote me on that, Mr. Attorney over there, because again, the rights of the disabled and your civilian citizens have rights in Los Angeles. Thank you and good morning.
Adolf Hitler, Sig Heil, just to make you feel more at home. Now, somebody was talking about participating in meetings. They had a little meeting in Venice. Somebody wasn't here. Let's see. Let's take the roll call. Police Commissioner Charlie Beck? He's not here. How about Commissioner Madison, Figueroa, Kim, Saltzman? Not here, not here, not here, not here. The mayor, not here. Venice, California, the site of the latest execution. Where were you? How about in your report? Were you putting out what were you doing? Quelling another riot somewhere? Was there some sort of urgent matter that you couldn't face the people of Venice? Police chief can't even face the community. Look at them. The Jewish one, the black one, the Asian one, it doesn't matter. They just go ahead and they just dial up the latest lobbyist, put them on the panel. See, we're multicultural. And then you got one fool that shows up. He shows up to the meeting, and he can't explain where the police chief is. Where's the mayor? Where's the rest of the commission? Can't explain. Why did this guy get shot? Can't explain. Where's the video of the shooting? Can't explain. No, just can't explain. So here you go. You got what do you got? A couple of little cameras here, media, you know. Just everybody says the guy was disturbing the peace in Venice. He deserved to get shot, right? Because you disturbed the peace and you're unarmed. The price is death, right? How come you don't go to the meeting in Venice? Face the community. They wanted to see you. You might have been able to convince 1 or 2 out of 1,000. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now on item number 3, report of the executive director, Mr. T. Fank.
Morning, Mr. President, members of the commission. I'd like to begin my remarks by congratulating 2 of our commission staff who were recognized this morning. Unfortunately, they were unable to be there. Lydia Matlock, who is a senior clerk typist in Commission Investigation Division, 40 years of service, and Eva Vega, senior management analyst 2 in our policy section, 35 years of service. So I want to thank them for their service. And we are approaching our next commission community meeting, which will be on Thursday, May 28th, 6:30 p.m., Shepherd of the Hills Church, 19700 Rinaldi in Porter Ranch. And the public is encouraged to come to that meeting. It will be hosted by Council Member Mitchell Englander. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. We do have 4 public comment cards. We have Michael Locke, Mr. Herman, Louis Hollingsworth, and Adolf Hitler.
Public comment again. Racism. Is it any racism at the meetings? Or is it any racism there? Is it any retaliation? Because they shoot. The Pacific Division kill folks. They shoot. Will there be any shootings at the meeting? They're racist, and they have to come out of there. Get them out of there, Chief Beck! You're racist!
Mr. Herman?
I got this wonderful calendar here to express the gratitude of all you constituents. We must recognize this is the month for calendar week. Mr. T-Fank, recognizing all officers of the law. I salute all you officers who served in the military, as well as my brother, U.S. Army. But again, I'd like to present the Lucille Roybal Allard Student Art Competition. What a graceful way of putting money into good art and work. The same way the city of Los Angeles does not prohibit art, but encourages eyesore graffiti in our neighborhoods, which becomes the broken window cycle of what affects our communities, and then it doesn't get put on the calendar. You see, the calendar. And in roll call to the calendar, Mr. Beck, you know, we could have put your nice picture here in Venice, and you could have talked to the community about the special event that Mr. Adolf Hitler was speaking about earlier, and everyone would have been happy about it. But in other words, my concern regarding the calendar is that when the city of Los Angeles postpones and cancels on the safety meetings by Mitch Englander, who wants to be the next county supervisor. Boo. But that has nothing to do with the calendar. Notify us 72 hours in advance so that we can come prepared, or just stay at the park or at Venice Beach enjoying the ocean. Because I'd rather pick up a tan lying on the beach than coming here and expressing my real opinions about the rights of the disabled, those who are the weak and vulnerable in Venice Beach, who have been challenged by the assaults and become the victims of our society by, again, I heard harassment.
Next.
Lois Hollingsworth?
Thank you. Hi, my name is Lou Hollingsworth. I'm a senatorial candidate for the state of California's senior legislature. I'd just like to say top of the morning to the president and the police commission. I'd just like to say one thing. If we all in this audience would be perfectly honest,
Racism.
we all have a scintilla of racism in us. And I'll speak that for myself, to be perfectly honest. I just like to say one thing. Several years ago, there was an incident where 4 young black men were traversing through Beverly Hills in an Impala. and they were pulled over by Beverly Hills PD. And several of the youngsters in the vehicles, fathers were attorneys. And there was a big brouhaha in the community that Beverly Hills PD was racist and they were racial profiling blacks. And my organization, First Glance, had a town hall meeting to try to have the community think critically and look at that incident critically. And so what I did is I presented to the community to please put the shoe on the other foot. Say you and I had a black gentleman standing next to me, were police officers, and our beat was in Watts, and the Jordan Down projects was in our jurisdiction. And I say, take it that we weren't racist, we were just good police officers trained to do good police work, to challenge anything that looked out of the ordinary. And I say, what would happen if we saw on our beat 2 young white kids coming out of the Jordan Down projects in a BMW at 11 o'clock at night? What would we do? We would pull them over, had nothing to do with racism, just good policing. And so I'm here to say that I support President Soboroff.
Next.
And I just hope that everybody works out.
All right. Adolf Hitler here, just to make you feel comfortable. Now, you missed the point of public service. Young people are sitting here, and what are they drawing? Death. That's what they're drawing. Because that's the feeling of young people. Despair. Because they know this economy's not creating jobs. They know the homeless are increasing. You go down the 101 freeway, there's camps everywhere. You go down everywhere. Homeless, 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 homeless. Why? Where's the economic recovery you hear on TV? Then you go down to Venice, in the little nice little white area where they're having their drinks and their little cocktails and their little fancy bar, and a black guy shows up homeless. Next thing you know, he's dead. Unarmed. No response. Look at this. You give out awards. You should give out a shooting award because they were good. You know they shot him in the side? They shot him twice in the side, Mr. Brandon. You know that? How do you shoot a guy in the side when he's coming at you and you're defending yourself? Usually you guys shoot in the back or the front. They shot him in the side. How do you justify that? How do you justify that? And then what's being done? You're going to take 6 months to release the first report? You know, you guys are just, you're the greatest. You know that? You're paid for the protection racket of Spring Street. You're paid to clear out people so your developers can develop the beach property in Venice. You want the property. Get rid of everybody. That's what you're doing.
And we have one additional card on this item. We have Mr. Ted Hayes.
Morning, Mr. Hayes.
Morning, sir. This is in regard to future agenda items. Arizona. The owners of the restaurants were cited because they failed to cooperate. The police had asked them to make sure that the bikers did not wear their uniforms, their colors, or the regalia. And they didn't. And for that reason, they were closed down. Now, ironically, when the police raid a certain apartment complex, raid it, make several arrests for drugs or being a house of ill repute, that property can be seized by the city attorney. Not only that, in certain instances, the city attorney has demolished the building. Now, this is passing the buck to the most horrendous extreme. You really expect a property owner to confront a drug dealer or a pimp, or in Arizona's case, murderous gangs, and tell them what they can and cannot do. You can't wear your colors, you can't wear your jacket. So we find it difficult to comprehend how the city attorney, in cooperation with the police department, can demand a apartment owner to tell people they cannot have certain guests there, they cannot be there, you've got to go, and these people are criminals. So that's a conflict of creative thinking, I believe, when you ask public citizens to do the job that apparently the government, through the police and the city attorney, cannot accomplish. So we have the same situation here in LA when it comes to the police telling private individuals, you've got to take care of the criminal activity, and we can't handle it. So I think that ought to be an agenda item to cover the aspect of how it is the buck is passed to the private person.
Thank you. We're on item number 4, the report of the Inspector General. Mr. Bustamante.
Thank you, Commissioners. No comments today.
Okay, we do have 4 public comment cards. We have Michael Locke, Prentice Jenkins, Mr. Herman, and Adolf Hitler.
These need to be on the Inspector General's discussion. Anything outside that will be in public comment.
First, we can talk about the Inspector General going out doing an investigation on my hybrid getting towed 2 or 3 times. That's a big matter because I filed a complaint with the Inspector General's office. Has that shit been done? Hell no. You know why? Because they don't care about African Americans. That's just like him getting shot in the side. Had the Inspector General been out there? Hell no. You know why? Because they don't care. Chief Beck is a racist. The Inspector General is a racist. Eric Garcetti's a racist. Mike Furr's a racist. And most of the city white council people are racist. And that's the goddamn truth. You guys don't care. All you guys do is retaliate. Wreck people's lives. Go in there because you guys are racism. The Pacific Division, I've never seen an Inspector General out there besides Andre Barak. And that's why the Pacific Division is having so many problems. Chief Beck won't correct the problem. He will not get those racist cops out of there. Skinner, Curtin, Cook, all those sergeants are racist. But he won't do anything about it because he's racist himself. And it takes one to know one, huh, Chief Beck? And the Inspector General. All white people running the city of Los Angeles.
Next.
Prentice Jenkins.
Another show and tell here. Our post-traumatic stress disorder in the police department. This is that's a young man being searched.
What's it have to do with the Inspector General?
Significant incidents. He grabbed his penis and the cop says, "What's that?" The young man said, "That's my penis." Cop says, "Oh, sorry." "Yeah, I bet he is sorry." "I bet it was an accident." Homosexuality in the police department. Down low homosexuality in the police department. Here we go again.
Mr. Jenkins, did those incidents occur in the city?
Yes, they did. This did.
Okay.
This is an LAPD officer taking pictures of little kids.
Five-year-old daughter and trying to take provocative pictures of her. If you think the roller coaster is the scariest thing at the fair, wait until you hear what happened to Mark Dornan and his 5-year-old daughter today as they set up a booth selling kid stuff.
Good afternoon. A man walks up to our booth, and you can talk to this lady afterwards who saw this happen. She did. I've been in her store, and he came up and tried to sneak a picture of my daughter.
I'm not saying all LAPD are like this. It's probably 1%, but you know they're there.
The little girl would, light the Kimbo out of the thing and snuck a picture.
The woman in the booth next door saw the man with the camera.
So I can prove, this is proof, that you have pedophile cops,
We're done.
homosexual cops.
Next.
Mr. Herman. Mr. Herman?
Start the clock.
Start the clock. You can start the clock. Because, again, I'm addressing Alexander Bustamante, the Inspector General here, regarding all the complaints of harassment throughout the city of Los Angeles. It is in best interest of the public that the Inspector General's responsibility is to improve his investigation on matters of conduct among abuse, discrimination, and more so harassment to individuals who live in Venice Beach or throughout the city of Los Angeles. If I'm wrong, correct me. No answer, no reply. But Inspector General, I have a case regarding a Andy Garcia, serial number 27045, Internal Affairs CCU, for CF number 14/001646. Are we still investigating this complaint regarding an individual from City Hall by the name of Armando Herman? Again, for the record, Armando Herman, who the Sergeant of Arms, and possibly a conflict of interest when you say that a public official has the right to order the Sergeant of Arms at City Hall to injure, harass, and hurt people in a public meeting? Are you in violation of the federal mandate under ADA to investigate this or not? Because I have conclusive evidence and people at City Hall who have seen the aggression of certain individual Sergeant of Arms. Not that they're all racist, but racial profiling, disrespect to the public who have concerns regarding public meetings. This is again intentional, and I demand an investigation under the federal standing that you investigate
Next.
the problems at City Hall. Thank you, Mr. Soboroff. Good morning.
Sig Heil Adolf Hitler and make you feel comfortable. So, we have an Inspector General? Wow, I didn't know that. The department has an Inspector General. That's amazing. You really? Nah, you don't have an Inspector General. You have a Mickey Mouse Inspector General. So in honor of the Mickey Mouse, I'm going to speak as Mickey Mouse. I'm Inspector General of the LAPD. Yeah, they're going to go around in Venice. Yada, yada, yada. Somebody was calling 911, and somebody got shot twice in the side. Well, according to Mickey Mouse, it's a justifiable defense of other police officers, so I hereby clear the LAPD of any wrongdoing. And then, why wasn't our police chief there at the meeting, even though he's the chief executive of the Police Commission of the City of Los Angeles and required under the city charter? Oh, there I go, reading the law. I'm not supposed to do that. I'm supposed to be a hand-paid puppet of the city council, so I'll continue. Let's see, what else in my significant incidences? There's none. Crime's down 190% in the city. So, anyway, I'm the Inspector General of the LAPD. Yay! I hereby exonerate all the police officers involved in the shooting of any African American from January 1st, 2011 to May 30th, 2015. Did you notice that I'm going ahead of time? Because I'm going to go ahead of time anticipating the next shooting that occurs in the next 2 weeks, and I hereby clear in absentia and in forwarding my comments. So therefore, I'm the Mickey Mouse. I'm the Inspector General, and I hereby say LAPD does a great job. Thank you.
Well, now on item number 5. Item number 5 consists of information items and filed items relative to noise variances and special event permits submitted for the period ending May 15, 2015. Item number 6, presentations. Do we have any presentations this morning?
Not today.
Thank you. Item number 7, consent agenda items. These items are considered to be routine and non-controversial, upon which the board is provided with adequate information for approval without inquiry or discussion. Would a commissioner wish to pull an item as special for discussion, 7A through 7E?
Mr. President, I think it would be helpful to hear from the department on item 7D, which I think is a unusual and extraordinary program. If the department's prepared to talk about it today, that's great. If not, we can schedule it. I move approval of items 7A, B, C, and E.
Okay. Do you want to talk about the baseball cards today, or want to wait till we're going to have the release of them and a whole announcement about them, or do you want to do that today?
Okay, let's wait. I move approval of items 7A through E.
Second, with thanks to all the donors.
Thank
All those
you.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We're now on item number 8. Would a commissioner wish to pull an item as special for discussion, 8B through 8D?
I think we should hold items 8C and 8D. I move approval of item 8B.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you. We'll
Start with
begin with
A.
item 8A, verbal presentation and update from the commanding officer and Community Police Advisory Board representative regarding community-initiated problem-solving, crime strategies, and other programs and goals within the Northeast area.
Morning. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm Captain Jeff Burt, and with me today is my co-chair, Ida Serta. I just wanted to, before I start, wanted to thank the Police Commission and the Chief of Police for having the inclination and the desire to continue asking about the CPAB program. I think it's one of the most important, and its longevity has proven a lot of worth for the Los Angeles Police Department, so thank you for your interest. Our CPAB, I've been at Northeast for 2 years, and our CPAB has two goals that we've been working on for the past year. The first is outreach to the underserved communities, and the second is building youth police partnerships. The first, outreach to underserved communities. When we put that together, our CPAB, our concept of outreach to underserved is we are stationed in Glassell Park, right next to Cypress Park and Highland Park. We have, particularly in Cypress Park, out of all of the 34 miles of Northeast, we have the lowest education level. We have in Northeast Division, just in Cypress Park, we have the most children, and we have also the highest poverty level in Cypress Park. So our focus in CPAB has been particularly Cypress, Glassell Park, and Highland Park for these initiatives in general. In this, one of the initiatives, and we touched on it last year, was the convening of a Mama's Captain's Table, in which we used, actually, Children's Hospital introduced me to a panel of local mothers from Cypress Park and Glassell Park and now Drew Street, who have come together to talk about issues, concerns regarding police and the safety of the kids in the neighborhood. So we've worked for several, now coming up on 2 years, on a program whereby we meet with them monthly and we do a whole bunch of collaborative programs, and we'll get into those. Another strategy to outreach the underserved is training, retraining the community on using 911. One of the things we've noticed, brought to my attention by senior leads, is some of our community members are quick to put stuff on Facebook and e-blasts when in fact they should be calling 911. So in Franklin High School next month, we're going to have a symposium on that, taught by 911 operators, to remind people when to use 911. We're also in the process of developing a syllabus for our senior leads and our officers in local schools to get cops back in the schools. My P1s are in the process of adopting elementary schools in the area so they can read books and then focus on some of the issues that are germane to teenagers today, like cyberbullying. The final aspect we're working on is creating a calendar of community events that we distribute to all CPAB members. One of our biggest challenges, we have 13 very distinct communities in Northeast Division, and getting people out of their silos of Atwater Village to go to Cypress Park and vice versa. So we've really bridged that gap this year. I'm really proud to say that working with IATA, we've had a lot of commingling of events where CPAB from Atwater is in Cypress, Highland Park is in another community. So we're proud of that.
Great, and our second objective for the year is really building on youth police partnerships. I think it's quite common for youth at risk of gang joining or youth that are higher at risk of behaviors such as that are really kind of perceived or portrayed as not really caring about their community, or often not engaged and invited to take on leadership opportunities. And so we want to change that in the Northeast. We've really engaged the Human Relations Commission from the city to help us with this effort, and really have staged kind of this multi-sector collaborative kind of map for the Northeast. We've launched, in collaboration with the captain, the Northeast Community Collaborative, which is comprised of about 25 local stakeholders ranging from churches to schools and to businesses. And what makes this really unique compared to other coalitions that I've been part of at the hospital is that the captain is directly involved in co-facilitating, designing, and really very active in this initiative. One of the key things we've done is we recently launched a Northeast Youth Council. This is really unique to the Northeast because it really targets, again, those kids who are challenged with leadership opportunities. And recently held our first meeting that was about 29 young people in the area that covered all over from Echo Park to Elysian Valley and so forth. And one of their top two priorities that were recognized by them after the captain came in non-uniform and really had this transparent dialogue with them, and kind of they saw the man behind the uniform. Their whole goal is to really increase, and really they said police youth partnerships is a priority for us, so they really do care about this kind of work. And in addition to that, we also launched the PAL sports program, specifically targeting youth who are at risk of gang involvement and other risky behaviors.
Based on our two initiatives, we just did a quick list of the overall achievements of the CPAB this year. We completed 4 foot beats in Cypress Park with a Mama's table, in which both Aida and me, members of the police department, walked with the moms, went to various houses, neighborhoods in Cypress Park, and talked to different, just went in their houses, had supper with folks, and learned about their problems, their concerns, and did what we could to respond. Springing from that, many of the folks pointed out that Cypress Park is so dark at night. There's 23 lights that they pointed out that are broken and needed repair. Working with our neighborhood prosecutor, Gabriella Taylor, she went around, found every single one of them with the moms, and to date, in the last 2 months, we've fixed 17 of the street lights, and the others are scheduled to be fixed as well. We're also working on trimming the trees there, because even though we fix the lights, the trees are kind of obfuscating it. We've held multiple community dinners. I touched on last time, the gang unit actually was served dinner by the Mama's table, which was phenomenal. These women came and they prepared a meal for 55 cops. In turn, we held a barbecue for the moms and their families, and the gang unit, cooked dinner for everyone. We had an ice bucket challenge. It was a really great event. We graduated 15 residents from the LAPD Citizens Academy. 4 of those folks were from the moms group, and then we also held an AB60 forum, and 2 of our women have now got their driver's license, and first time they've done that, and they are now, in a couple months, we're co-hosting with Department of Motor Vehicles, LAPD, and the moms. We're going to get more people to go to the AB60 forum.
I think these mamas who are monolingual Spanish speaking, and many of them who are undocumented, who have initially felt alienated by police and are now sitting down with them, has really gotten a lot of attention from local newspapers. We've been highlighted in the Guardian, Los Feliz Ledger, and the California Health Report, and then also NPR came out and also is pending a story.
Good.
I think the idea of best practices is really important for us as a hospital, but also prevention. And while we're also engaging young people in this initiative, I believe that young people really need to be engaged in civic engagement initiatives and so forth. And as a result, we think this is a very fundable initiative in partnership with police, especially with the Northeast. So we did submit a grant for the Office of Minority Health, and we were invited by the California Wellness Foundation to submit a letter of intent related to this initiative. And although we didn't receive an invite to submit a grant, we do feel in the future, as we kind of cultivate these initial relationships, that we do think it's fundable.
In closing, for me, the best thing about CPAB is a potential for action. It's a potential that people can come together and actually do things. It's not a place where they come and complain about their own little problem on their street. That's what neighborhood watches are for, and senior leads. But this is a place where they come and they discuss real problems that affect their communities as a whole, and give back. And I would just say that in this CPAB, They participated in 4 community cleanups this year, large-scale community cleanups, and then in Highland Park and Cypress Park. And the holidays, we gave away over 50 turkeys. And then at Christmas time, we gave toys to over 850 families for Christmas. And so really, really impressive. And then the last, and it's on the slide, because some of that initiative and the toys left over, we were able to create at Northeast Division a toy and book nook. So our goal, and every cop who knows me knows this, every kid who comes into Northeast Station gets a toy and a book. That's just the way it is. And if they're at the front desk, because we have a really small, awful little station right now, and it'll change, but they get to come in, get a toy, get a book, and our hope is that it's just kind of one more thing to break down some of the tension. So as we move forward, that's going to be a continued initiative. In closing, I wanted to thank my CPAB co-chair. I look at our cadets and PAL program. It's more robust than it was 2 years ago when we just had a soccer program for which the Children's Hospital bought the boxing ring. But now we have a youth soccer program with 120 kids signed up from our neighborhoods, and a martial arts program that kicked off last week.
Questions? You're doing a great job.
Thanks.
No questions. I just want to thank you and thank you for your patience in the earlier part of our meeting. But it's great to see you here. Thank you.
We do have one public comment card. We have Mr. Prentice Jenkins.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good job, Jeff.
Final point here. This is what happened after the meeting.
What's this have to do with a CPAP? Nothing?
Sir, this is initiating and solving crime strategies in Putnam.
No, it isn't. You're just showing the same video you show every time.
That's not the same video. That lets me know you're not watching it.
That's the one you sit down.
This is a different video. This is a video of a cop.
Keep on topic.
Mr. Jenkins.
This is
Mr.
topic.
Jenkins.
Times go,
If you
please.
just let me
Listen
talk,
to me.
I'd be done.
Listen
You'd be
to
on
me.
topic, we'd let you
We're
talk.
on,
This has
we're
to
on
relate-
8A, correct? Are we on 8A? This
has
is
to-
about.
listen
We're
to
on
me.
8A, you're not.
All right.
This
This
has
is
to relate
about
to the
representing-
Northeast.
Regarding community, I am the community.
In
Okay,
Northeast
one moment.
area.
I am of the community. Is this the Northeast?
Northeast area.
Is this the Northeast area?
No.
Then why are we talking about the Northeast area in this
They just
police
finished.
commission?
They just finished talking about it.
And?
Is your comment related to that? That's
Yeah,
the question.
It is. My comment is related
It is
to
not,
that.
sir.
Yeah, you've messed with my time too. This is a cop trying to intimidate us.
In the Northeast area?
Myself
Are you?
and
You're
Mr.
not listening.
Hayes,
You're not
myself and
listening
Mr.
to me.
Hayes were out on the corner talking after this meeting,
Right.
and this cop drove on the sidewalk
Right.
in front of your
It has
police
nothing
station.
to do with this
Not
item.
one cop did anything about it.
Nothing to do with
He's
the
right.
site.
This man is driving on the
Okay, so
sidewalk.
this will be
sir.
your public
You can
comment.
make
Not
those
one man
comments
did
at the
anything
end
about it.
in general public
there you
comment.
go. You know why you
General
can't?
public
you
comment,
know
you
why
can
there
make
are
those
no
comments.
solutions? Because you're busy talking and you're not listening.
Right.
If you listen,
Neither
there'd
are
be
you.
solutions. You keep talking about solutions, but you keep talking and you won't listen to the
Right.
community.
Stay on
If you
topic,
listen to
pal.
the community, you'd have solutions. So stop talking
We just
and
did.
listen to the community.
We heard the
and you get
community speak.
solutions, sir.
Stay
Right?
on topic.
Does that make sense? If you stop talking and let the community talk, you'll have solutions. Stop being pompous and arrogant.
Right.
Is that it on
Thank
this
you.
one?
That's it. Move on to the next one, sir.
We have Mr. Hayes.
On 8A, Mr. Hayes?
I will refresh your memory. As members of the Police Commission, you were supposed to be given a copy of the Ralph M. Brown Act, and I hope you reviewed it. What it points out is you cannot deter criticism of your policies, your actions, or your failure to act. I believe the gentleman who preceded me was trying to talk about a failure to act. Perhaps he was linking it to a cop on a sidewalk and not directly to the commission. But nevertheless, when people come to criticize your actions or your failure to action, where is that on the agenda? What part of the agenda does that take place at? None. So it can occur anywhere, I would imagine, unless you designate a certain area for complaints about our inability or unwillingness to act or take something into consideration. Now, I see the garb and the costumes and the comic things that take place here as well as you do. But there's very little comment. In fact, I've heard no comment about the outfits that the people have been wearing, the caricatures they've been making, because you recognize that's what they have the freedom to do. A gentleman draped in the American flag is free to do that, as well even burn it outside if he'd like.
Mr. Hayes, are your comments related to this item?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm talking about the Brown Act that says I can do this, okay?
Right,
I'm
and you're just
talking
wrong,
about the
but go
Commission's
ahead.
actions as well as failure to act. Now, look, sir, don't have me go up on the 17th floor.
And
Thank
do
you. He knows what that means. So I hope that we can contain ourselves and simply endure the 2 minutes of fame these people are questioning about their issues without somehow becoming so embroiled, it turns out to be a fight.
Okay.
Can I just reiterate that the comments that we were hearing were related to the northeast area. So no one is trying to curtail people's ability to comment under the Brown Act. There are absolutely areas built in to this meeting that allow for that. The comments that were to have heard on 8A relate to the Community Police Advisory Board representative regarding community-initiated problem-solving, crime strategies, and other programs and goals within the Northeast area. That's what we were dedicating the time to. And the city attorney and the commission president have been trying to keep people on topic as related to these particular agenda items. So we are not curtailing people's opportunity to criticize. I just want to make that clear.
Thank you. Let's go
Thank you. We're now on item 8C, Department's report dated May 14, 2015, relative to the categorical use of force investigations involving animal shootings and non-tactical unintentional discharges of firearms.
Okay, Commander. Did we have specific questions, Commissioner?
I would just like to understand a little better than I do that the initial decision that gets made about whether what's happened is a categorical use of force, non-categorical use of force, and I think I understand what's here, but I don't understand from this who makes that decision and how it's made and transmitted. That's my.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. Commander Lopez for Force Investigation Division. I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question, sir.
So the policy speaks to categorical use of force investigations involving animal shootings.
Yes, sir.
And non-tactical unintentional discharges of firearms. And what I don't understand is the initial categorization of the incident as categorical, non-categorical, or nothing. And so I'm trying to understand who makes that decision, on what do they base the decision, and who do they notify?
And generally, they notify Force Investigation Division when it becomes a categorical. Categorical is any type of investigation where either someone's injured and is hospitalized, there's a canine contact with the hospitalization, an officer-involved shooting, law enforcement-related injury, or a animal shooting. So those are the issues, or those are the investigations that we're responsible for, and we make the determination whether or not we're going to respond.
And who's making the decision to notify FID?
Generally, it'll be the watch commander who calls Racer, and then Racer calls us.
And so you say generally the watch commander, that's not in this policy, that's in another policy, or just understood?
It's in another policy in the manual section. It talks about the notifications, and it doesn't address the notifications here. This is specific to changing the form that we use,
Right.
which is we added warning shots to this form and made it simpler for us to use.
Okay, that gives me enough information for now. Thank you.
Want to move approval of the item?
I just, before we do that,
Yeah.
I also have, I think, a similar question as to how the process works for the determination of categorical or non-categorical. So maybe at another time, we could have a presentation which walks us through the entire chain of events and how that's determined. Great.
Which includes from the non-CATs, because non-CATs are separate from the categoricals that we investigate.
Right. So what I'm probably asking for is a little bit separate from you entirely. What I'm looking for is an explanation for us of how the determination is made as to a categorical or a non-categorical.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
We do have one public comment card. We have Mr. Hayes.
I made a suggestion that we somehow link the officer's holster and the drawing of the weapon to a Bluetooth system that would start the video camera that the officer might be wearing. I have a cell phone, and when I enter my home, my cell phone automatically links up to my landline. Marvelous technology. Only costs $95 for that particular capability. So I am talking about retrofitting holsters on every holster in the LAPD that will automatically turn on the body camera. Now, if the officer draws his gun for some reason as an accidental discharge, at least you'll see what perhaps the purpose of drawing the weapon was to begin with. So I haven't investigated this too much. I've talked to some people about it, particularly my son, who knows about this kind of thing. And he says, yes, it's quite possible and very inexpensive. So I think that this might be linked to the same problem. An officer has a weapon in his hand, or somehow the weapon is discharged, but nevertheless we had a full view of the situation, at least from the point of the body camera that was taking place. So I think that somehow you should consult with people who know these things, camera builders, Bluetooth people, and see whether or not this might be one of the best ways to have the body camera linked with the most serious aspect of police operations, that's drawing the weapon.
We have a motion for approval of item 8C.
Move approval of item 8C.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
8D.
8D, Department's Report dated May 8th, 2015, relative to the review of Council Motion, Homeless Mental Health.
Welcome.
Thank you.
But you did a very good job on this report. Do we have questions?
I do, Mr. President, but I think we would all benefit from a general presentation discussion. This is I think work the department's doing is impressive, important, and in many ways leading the nation on issues that are of great importance and significance. So I'd like to understand, I think what would be helpful to start would be a little bit of an explanation of Laura's Law and where the department is at implementing the requirements of it. That may answer all my questions. If not, I'll go ahead and ask them.
Okay. I'm Captain Kelly Moldorfer, Commanding Officer, Detective Support and Vice, and this is Lieutenant Brian Bixler, and he's the officer in charge of the mental evaluation unit. And with regard to Laura's Law, it's a law that allows counties to develop a system to provide court-ordered assisted outpatient treatment for those individuals, adults who meet specific criteria. The criteria, without going into too much detail, they have to be over 18, they suffer from mental illness, and they are, say, service resistant, and they require some sort of supervised assistance for care. So this is, each county was allowed to either adopt it or not, and then come up with their own way to go about doing that. As it relates to how LA County has decided to do it, that's our involvement, the Los Angeles Police Department, we've been involved with the county in helping develop these protocols from the beginning, and it's going to basically impact us in three ways. The triage desk at the mental evaluation unit where all the calls come in for all of our SMART units. If there's any mental health related call, they call the mental evaluation unit. We're going to triage those referrals. The county has come up with a form that police officers can fill out if someone that they come across in the community meets criteria. And then those forms will be given to the triage desk, and we'll forward them on to Department of Mental Health, and they will then do an outreach to these individuals. So that's part of the involvement, is we'll be the intake point for all of the LAPD initiated referrals. The other piece is there are welfare checks as the Department of Mental Health then goes out to follow up on all the referrals. They may from time to time ask for welfare checks, in which case the Los Angeles Police Department or any law enforcement agency would do a welfare check. And that's simply where we're asked to go out and go to a location and see if the individual that they're looking for is okay, that they're not in harm's way or anything. And then the other piece is we will perform what they call a standby duty. So if a social worker goes out on one of these referrals and needs police assistance or wants the police to stand by because of the circumstances, then they will call out a patrol unit to handle that. So that's the basic impact of Laura's Law for us at this point. Lieutenant, did you want to add anything to that?
No, that was about it.
And could you give us a sense of the workload, that is, the frequency of this? There's a reference on page 3 in the report that CAMP, just one part of the program, says CAMP averages 15 to 20 new cases each week, and its cases never close. So I'm just curious, we periodically see a really unfortunate incident on the news involving a person and what you're describing, and I would find it helpful to understand how the workload of the folks we have doing this.
Okay, and I'm going to let Lieutenant Bixler talk about that in just one moment. One of the things that I'd like to bring up about the camp is its primary mission is to identify those people who are at risk and to follow up and manage their cases over a long period of time. So we reduce the recidivism in terms of calling for police services. But and one of the things that CAMP does is on any of the critical incidents that occur out in the field, say a barricaded suspect or anything like that, we have our SMART units there with a supervisor, and we run them through the system to see if they're one of our cases. We have not had very many where actually it has been one of someone who's a current open camp case, but we do that very regularly, and we follow up and make sure that this isn't a case that we're already handling. But if it is, then that also helps with the resolution of the situation. But I'll let Lieutenant Bixler talk about the actual workload.
Absolutely. The cases are actually referred through our triage desk. So when the triage desk comes in, there's a box to check on there that says it's got camp referral. So that's up to our triage desk to make that determination. At least once a week, our Detective 3 of camp gets together with our DMH partners, and we decide which cases fit the criteria for us and we're going to move forward through. We have 7 teams. Those teams consist of a detective and a DMH clinician. Each of those teams carries about 20 to 25 open cases at a time, which is a very significant caseload. Some of these only require a phone call and placement to the families, but some of them are very, very labor intensive, carrying over several years to try and get that person into the correct placement and resolve the problem. So asking about the caseload, it's significant. Now, if we were able to add 2 more teams, which is just 2 more DMH clinicians, 2 more detectives, that we anticipate would reduce the workload to about 15 to 17 cases per team, which would make it definitely a more manageable caseload for those detectives and clinicians.
And if the department has the resources to increase the teams, are the resources available from the county, or is there a limitation coming from the county's resources on what we are able to do?
I can't speak for the county. However, I know that the county has requested additional 16 line items for clinicians for the next fiscal year, which is July 1 of 2015. Whether that goes through or not, that we don't know. Those 16 were, we completed a build out for SMART to increase, and we didn't include camp in that. But again, I don't know what the county has, what their budgeting items are, and I know that there's other resources requesting, or other agencies requesting resources from the county as well.
Mr. President, when we get to it and move approval of the item, I think I'm going to suggest we also ask you to send a letter to the Board of Supervisors raising this issue, that is, pointing out how serious this problem is, and as I understand, Chief Beck has said on many occasions, the willingness of the department to put more resources into this, but it only makes sense to do that if the county resources match that. And if I'm getting that, I'd be happy to be corrected if I'm not getting that right.
Well, what I would suggest is that I know that the mayor's office is very involved in working with the county as we speak on this same issue. I just asked that the commission coordinate with the mayor's office so that they don't get duplicative requests from the city.
I agree completely. I'm sorry, I just had one last question, which was on page 5 in the report is a discussion of the telecourse, that in May of 2014, all LAPD sworn personnel were mandated to complete the 2-hour post-update course. And I'm just curious how much progress has been made on that and what your projections are about that.
The most recent number that we have is about 76% of all sworn personnel have completed it.
Right. Thank you. Just one last comment. I have a particular interest in these issues, and Mr. President, to the extent you think it's appropriate, I'd be happy to be designated as a member of the commission to work on these issues. As I said in the beginning, I think the department is a tremendous leader on these issues, and as my colleagues know, I am occasionally critical of the department. This is an opportunity where I can be very supportive of the department and would like to be, and offer to be involved however I can. Thank you.
Okay. I also believe that the mayor is going to be making some announcements and some other important steps forward in this area.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have one public comment card.
I have a question, sorry.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I have a question. Excuse me, and I'm sorry, I apologize, I have a cold. Would you say that the numbers of calls for mental health, involving mental health cases is increasing? Are there any kinds of statistics that point to the percentage of department resources in the field, deployments going more towards mental health, involving mental health issues? I don't know that I've seen that. And I believe you were here last year and made a presentation about what was happening more in the northern part of the city. But I don't know that I've seen overall what we as a city are seeing in terms of increase of department personnel dedicated to addressing mental health calls.
To the first part of your question, yes, the number of calls that involve people with mental illness is increasing. It has been increasing for the last several years. However, in terms of the mental evaluation unit, SMART, CAMP, and the response teams, that deployment has remained pretty much the same during that time. The one thing that I could say is that with the resources remaining flat for the last, I'm going to say 5 years at least, we've been able to maintain around the same percentage of the calls. Even though the calls are increasing, we've still been able to stay in the same percentage of calls that we handle out of SMART. I don't know if that answers fully your question, but
it sort of does, but it raises another question, which is, sorry for my voice. If the resources have pretty much remained flat for the past 5 years, then I don't know if it's logical to presume that somewhere here in the robbing Peter to pay Paul scenario is how we're covering and addressing a lot of the needs from the community. Is that right?
It's becoming a challenge, yes. If we would like to handle a higher percentage. If we increase the number of resources, obviously, we would be able to hire a higher percentage of calls and have a more robust strategy.
And so I don't know if this has initially been addressed in City Council, but I'm actually interested in having a more comprehensive, I apologize, a more comprehensive presentation overall as to where we stand, what the trending is likely to indicate in the next, I'm happy with 5 years. But what I really like to understand is if all the resources remain as they are and the trending towards the numbers of cases increases, at some point, you're going to be much more than getting concerned. At some point, it's going to be a significant concern in the city. And I'm actually wondering if we're not already there, only because of the numbers of instances where I have seen, or as Commissioner Salzman has referred to, the instances of cases that we've seen on television, as well as the reports that we get about the call-outs and the barricades and all the above. It just seems to me that we're reaching a very critical point in the city.
Let's go non-police for a second and talk about what's really going on. You've got service providers in Los Angeles that can provide services to people who have mental problems. They're not being appropriately funded. It's not a police department issue to fund all those service providers, and sometimes it's not a city issue to provide all the service providers. I think that greater philanthropy in Los Angeles is failing in its priorities by not funding these service providers. As you look around and see, $500 million pieces of art and $1 billion worth of this, what do you see going into these service providers? There's only so much responsibility we can take for saving the world. And I think some other people need to pitch in as well. And I think if you look at our programs, we're all saying the same thing. What we're doing is great. Nobody else is doing it. We're way ahead. We're a model. We're best practices. We're recognized universally. But we don't have the resources to do it all. And I think that in addition to what we're trying to do and what you're trying to do, and also with our behavioral sciences group as well, yes, we'd like to do more, and yes, we'd like to train more, and yes, we'd like to, but the issue of mental illness combined with homelessness, combined with substance abuse, is overwhelming, and we can't deal with it proactively. Somebody else has to do it proactively, because unfortunately, we're called to deal with it reactively.
What I would ask the commission to do is the department and the mayor's office and the council and county have been are actively engaged in working on these issues, and rather than pre-stage that in the commission meeting, I think that this would be a good thing for the department to come back and report on as that starts to roll out.
Do you have any idea when that might happen?
I think that we'll see some movement on this in the very near future. The lieutenant commented on the recommended increase in county budget. That's directly tied to our request to expand our teams. The council committee on homelessness and the mayor's direct involvement in this are going to make significant progress. So, I think that the concerns of the commission are well founded, and they are the concerns of the city and the county, and we are working towards that. And as that gets announced, and then the department will come back and report to the commission as we roll that out.
Congratulations on what you're doing and leading the nation in this
Thank you.
very sensitive area.
There is one statistic that I'd like to hopefully put a little things in context, is that when we look at our uses of force, because that's obviously the big concern, is the uses of force involving people who have mental illness, Of all of the contacts that LAPD personnel have with people that have mental illness, less than 4% result in any type of a use of force, from a very minor use of force to all and up to including categorical. That cannot be said for a lot of other agencies in Southern California, where the percentage is close to 40%. So we are leaders within that area, and our officers are doing a pretty good job out there in managing these incidents.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you,
We do
Commissioner.
have
Thank you, Chief.
The one public comment card. We have Prentice Jenkins.
Thank you, guys.
Talk about homeless issues and mental health. This is a young homeless man who was riding his bike on the street. He was roughed up by the cops. Just riding his bike, young homeless man, riding his bike, roughed up by the cops. We continue to talk about homeless issues, mental health issues. What about the mental health of the cops that are coming in contact with young black men like this? This man's just riding his bike, and they stopped him and beat him up. They don't know what to charge him with. We continue to talk about mental health issues and the homeless, but you got to get your cops in line that are mentally ill too. They suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. They suffer from which is a recognized mental illness by the American Psychiatric Association. It is a recognized mental illness, folks. And when a guy with a gun and a badge has it, that's dangerous. A homeless guy standing in the street yelling at the trees is one thing. But a dude with a badge and a gun with that same mental illness, he's deadly. Africa's dead. I'm not calling those cops mentally ill. Maybe they weren't, maybe they will. They were. I understand the homeless. I've dealt with the homeless. I opened a free food bank back in 2007 and then opened a free computer training program. So when it comes to the community, we continue to tell you that what you need is a subcommittee of us. Mr. Soboroff, you keep saying you're talking about the issues of these programs not being funded. Aren't you a billionaire? You could fund them if you wanted to. You got the money. You got to go to the people with the money. I want to know what's happening with the proposal that I gave you to create a subcommission of people like us. Can you give me an answer on that? Chief, Mr. Soboroff, can you give me an answer on that? I'd like one.
There are no other public comment cards on this item.
I move approval of the item with the understanding that we're offering our support and asking the department to continue what it's doing, coordinating with the mayor's office, the county, and other appropriate agencies.
We have a second? Sandy? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Aye.
Thank you. We're now
That would include transmitting this report to the Homeless Committee of the City Council.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
In response to the motion. Very good.
Thank you. We're now on item number 9, public comment. We have 6 public comment cards. We have Catherine Boyd, Prentice Jenkins, B. Davis Bay.
Hi, my name is Catherine Boyd. I was at the meeting the other night, and I just came to see about my detective. That's it. That's all.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
Chief Beck, I spoke to you the other night about a detective. They say my case was transferred, and I talked to the detective, but he couldn't get the notes or something, the notes to it. He sent them back to the Nora Martinez. Then he told me to send them back to him. It's just a mix-up.
We'll have somebody get your information and work backwards for the detective.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Morning. I want to say,
Mr.
we're going in order.
You're up.
That's okay.
I'd like to say good morning to Mr. Soboroff, and worked on your campaign for mayor. Wish you'd have won, but you didn't. But seems like you're still doing big things. I want to say I commend Mr. Beck for the personal attack that was levied against him by Mickey Mouse and how he handled it. As a member of the public, I don't think that many people understand how the political process unfolds. And so myself and my associate, Mr. Hollingsworth, who is the senior senatorial candidate for the California Assembly, we are developing a wearable garment for mentally ill individuals so that when police officers identify them, they'll know that off the top there's an issue and they'll have a profile on who that individual is. And I think that may ease some of the burdens with regard to deadly force or use of extreme force for individuals that are mentally ill. And also we're developing a program to assist departments, government agencies, so forth and so on, with dealing with police officers that are suffering from PTSD, because a report that was put forth by the American Academy of Traumatic Stress has stated that 70% of active law enforcement are suffering from some form of PTSD, whether it's mild or minor. So those are issues that need to be addressed. And again, the public needs to be more forthcoming, as Mr. Soboroff said, with bringing their resource to bear, working in concert with city government, local government, so forth and so on, to offset the problems that predominantly affect them. So we're working to try to get the public into understanding how the political process works. You got to become more politically process orientated in your thinking. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Prentice Jenkins, followed by Bill Watkins, Naza Keith Halsworth, and Ted Hayes.
I'm gonna let this public comment speak for itself.
WNBC TV in New York, the General Electric Center out here to run this station. Great boss. Thank you again for coming. I didn't realize until I read your book that move from New York to Los Angeles sent you on a journey that resulted.
This young lady does not look Chinese, but she is. Yeah, I got this off the news. This, folks, is telling us about her racial makeup. A lot of times we talk about racial makeup, but we don't respect it. This stunned me. This woman is part Chinese. She's talking about the Pacific Rim. Let me see if we can take a look. Trying to find. There's a picture of her mother. Sorry, I couldn't get it. But her mother is Chinese. Y'all stunned, aren't you? Is your mother Chinese, Ms. Madison?
Next.
Bill Watkins.
Morning. Nice to be back. Thanks. And thank you for your service, Sandra. So thanks, Chief, for tweeting from the Clippers. That was neat. And I think you know that when you do stuff like that, you show your humanity and another side of the PD. I enjoyed that a lot. It's important for everybody to see the obvious, but people forget it. Our humanity, that we're people, and we love and some of the same things, don't like some, we disagree on some things, but I really appreciated that. That was nice, I think, for the city to see that tweet. I'm a Twitter guy. A lot of people aren't Twitter folk. I'm just on it because I do my comedy music, the things I want to do. One other thing, speaking of that I tweeted out to our senators, U.S. senators, the ladies, and a couple representatives from my area, and was that you all need, I think, and we need to look at the Second Amendment. And I encourage everyone to read that, go and look at it real close, and be in touch with your representatives who are close by, your Congress people, your senators, and look at that. It does hamstring us, that Second Amendment, and the non-lethal direction that we could go, the Captain Meyer studies and the non-lethal approaches that the LAPD could get into. We're hamstrung by a Second Amendment that's poorly written. No offense to the founding writers, God bless them, but poor. And that's why we have other amendments, and that's why we revise. So I encourage everybody to really look at that. That was a state militia justification that all of a sudden became let's everybody get a gun. And how are we going to disarm police and go to non-lethal if Joe Bob still got a gun? God bless you. I love you all. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Hi, thank you. My name is Nazareth Haysbert. First, I want to say I have tremendous respect for what you do. Police Commissioner Silveroff, Chief Beck, I really appreciate the curiosity of Commissioner Madison. I represent Samuel Calhoun Arrington. He's a 52-year-old African-American man who was recently tased, hogtied, beaten by 14 LAPD officers. 8 directly and 6 were looking on at the time. We filed a lawsuit in federal court today. So I'm here to say a couple of things. And I think it's important, first off, to make it very clear that we don't want another Brendan Glenn, and we don't want another Charlie Africa, and we have to do whatever it takes to ensure that that doesn't happen again. My client was very lucky to live, and I'm here on his behalf today to advocate for him and other mentally ill people who every day have to endure conditions that are just tremendous obstacles for them. And to add the police abuse on top of that, it just makes it very important for us to really have a plan for how we're going to move forward with dealing with the mentally ill and the homeless going forward. So I wanted to ask this very important question: justice for Sam, what does that mean to you? And if you could speak to that, Chief Beck, it'd be appreciated. Thank you.
Mr. Ted Hayes.
The Brown Act recommends that the items on the agenda be identified with 25 words or less. Look at your agenda. Everything except public comment is identified. There's no criticism under public comment. It doesn't exist. Now, it's not enough that you allow criticism, it's that you may not prohibit it. Now, the city attorney can shepherdize this particular item on prohibition, and I don't like to do that because I'm lazy. I don't like to go do all that research. But I've done it previously. And guess what? I made the LA Times front page when I was arrested by James Wood for not speaking on the agenda topic. The problem was I asked him one final question. What was Hayes talking about? I have absolutely no idea. Well, so I'm only concerned about the decorum that you display. And when you get upset and riled by these people, you don't know what's going on the streets. You don't know what your officers engage in every single day when they have to call for mental health assistance and things like that. Now, we're concerned about one thing. What's Robert's Rules of Order say about the way you conduct yourself? Are you utilizing that? If so, doesn't the chairman call upon the members of the commission, the police chief, to speak? But the city attorney seems to have a will to speak. He can speak anytime he wishes. Is that right? I doubt it. But he's the one who sets up the quarrel. He's the one who starts the debate, the issue, the fighting, the struggle, the argument. If you may not prohibit, doesn't mean you can't allow. It means you can't prohibit it. So I would suggest that you can do, the members of the public can do that for 2 minutes on any item on the agenda they wish. Understand, that's any item.
This concludes our public comment period. We're now on item number 10, closed session. The Board of Police Commissioners will now recess into closed session to discuss item numbers 10A, 1, 2, and 3 in accordance with Government Code 54957.